Welcome to Get Inspired with Real Talk, brought to you by GetInspired Southwest Florida. And this episode's host is myself, Shay Penry. The topics that came up on the wheel: how do I limit myself, and topic of change. Let's see what we get with our spin this morning. Good morning. The topic that I spun was, in what ways do I limit myself? I'm extremely hard on myself. Therapist tells me that all the time. Even when I went and saw a psychic, she told me that. She knew me for 2 seconds and the universe apparently told her that I'm too hard on myself. We could dive into it from a psychological perspective and try to go back to my childhood to see where it stems from. In elementary school, I suffered with my education. I don't know if it was necessarily I didn't have the capacity for it. I just didn't want to do homework. And believe it or not, homework makes a big difference in the grades that you get in school. And so I would barely scrape by, and I would look at my sister, who seemed to never open a book and would just get A's. And so I just assumed that I wasn't very smart. And then when people started dating and I was in the closet, and I didn't start dating because I looked like a little boy running around, because that's how I felt the most comfortable. I felt comfortable with short hair and wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey with a gold chain. That was my authentic me, but there weren't a bunch of other gay girls running around trying to date me. So I felt like I was ugly and not good enough and unwanted. Those feelings of inadequacy started early. I got in trouble in elementary school a lot for drawing, and I love to draw, but I would compare myself to other people. There's this kid in my elementary class who could draw insanely well, and I took one drawing class as a kid, and I looked at the people around me and what they were drawing, and it was these crazy good things. Whatever you start comparing yourself to other people, at least this is my experience, I fall short a lot, at least in my eyes. And so then I couldn't draw good enough, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a cartoonist, but I gave that up because I didn't think I was good enough. That's kind of the theme of my life. Wasn't good enough in school, wasn't good enough to be wanted in a relationship, wasn't good enough at drawing. I limit myself because there are still aspects of my life where I have negative self-talk. A lot of that for me comes into play at work. I still have that old, I'm not good enough. These other people are better than me at what they do. They're smarter, they're quicker, they communicate better, they take more time to think out things, they think more strategically. See, I'm kind of impulsive. I don't know if that's the addict in me or if it's just who I am. What I'm slowly learning is that everybody has their own talents, and they're not all going to be the same, and we can't compare them, that one thing is better than the other. It kind of ties into that whole comparing suffering. I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook. Somebody will post something about something that's going on in their life, and sometimes people's response to that is, well, just be thankful that you don't live in Africa and are starving or whatever. That's buying into that whole concept that your suffering is not significant enough to care about. So everybody has a different talent. So maybe there are people at my work that think more strategically or are more logical and are really good at math, and that's their skill. But perhaps they can't draw worth a damn. They don't think creatively. There are a lot of things that are unique to me that other people can't do. But that doesn't diminish what they can do, and what they can do doesn't diminish what I can do. And it's just, there's a lot of comparing we do in our society, and probably a lot of it's based on what we're conditioned to look at from our media and our advertisements. So the way that I limit myself is I compare myself to other people, and I use that comparison to diminish the unique abilities that I bring into this world. All right, let's see what we get. Let's just talk about change in general. Positive change is cool. You start making more money. New relationships always feel good at first. There are definite positive changes that people like. Even with positive change, it still can be scary. And that's the thing. I think change isn't innately bad. It's just I experience a lot of fear when it comes to change, because you're moving into a new place that's uncomfortable and you don't know what the results are going to be. And I fear the unknown. Every time that I start school again, or start a new class, or start a new job, or when I move to Florida, when I start new relationships, I'm scared because I don't know if I'm capable of doing it, whatever it is. And I have a lot of fear, I guess, around failure. For myself, I've needed to be in a lot of pain in order to actually be willing to do the consistent action over an extended period of time to bring about change. I could have motivation for a day, for a week, to have long lasting change, whether that's losing weight, being more mindful, those sorts of things. That requires consistency and self-discipline. A lot of times I have to be in a lot of pain to be willing to do that. Eating has been a challenge for me my entire life. Like, I was a fat little kid. High school, I reached my top weight. I hit a bottom where I then was able to change a lot of things in my life. I changed who I was hanging out with. I stopped drinking and smoking, started going to school, joined Weight Watchers, and I lost 115 pounds. It took a little over 2 years to lose that amount of weight. Then food, 8 years later, it began to be a tool again that I used to deal with my emotions. And so I started putting back on the weight. I had to hit another bottom with that. And it was right after my divorce. I was at my heaviest. I weighed 340 pounds. I'm supposed to weigh 190. So I joined Weight Watchers again. I lost 40 pounds pretty quickly. And then when I moved to Florida, I was at 309 and I was drinking at the time, and I decided it would be good to join CrossFit. So I tried to join CrossFit at 309 pounds, and that about killed me. I didn't lose any weight because they had me on this paleo diet, but I don't think the macros were right. I think I was eating too much fat or too many carbs or something. 2 years ago, I managed to lose 30 to 40 more pounds. I got down to 270. I'm down to about 257 right now. And how to maintain that is you obviously you have to have support. My biggest supporter over these last few years has been my therapist. Every time I go to see her, we check in on what my goals are and make sure that I'm moving towards those goals. But I'm not perfect. I have a lot of relapses. I mean, just last night, I had some issues with my dog. He's sick right now. I still use food at times to numb the emotional pain, the fear that I have. And so I ordered Bob Evans. I had a chocolate silk pie, which was amazing. But that doesn't help my weight goals. It's a relapse. It was a mini relapse, but it doesn't mean I'm going to get off the horse and call it quits and just go eat pie every day. The next day I get back on track and I keep going. And that's the sustained motivational factor that you have to eventually get to your goal. Now, the relapses will prevent you from getting there as fast as you would like. So here's the change cycle that my therapist introduced to me. So there's the pre-contemplation stage. There's no intention of changing the behavior at this point in time. And then there's the actual conscious contemplation stage here, where you're aware that a problem exists, but there's no actual commitment to any action. Preparation is you start making an intent upon taking action. I'm going to make this change on XYZ date. And then in the action stage, you actually start modifying your behavior. And then once that behavior modification takes place, you go into the maintenance stage, which is where you need to make the sustained change to replace that old behavior over a period of time. And then this is the important aspect. So this is the part that they don't like to talk about in recovery, is relapse is a part of the change cycle. The relapse may not necessarily be you picking up a drink. Relapse could be going back into old thinking behaviors, or reducing the number of meetings that you're going to, or using other things to numb that aren't necessarily drugs or alcohol. Like maybe you're using food, or you're working out to the extreme amount. So to say that relapse doesn't have to be a part of recovery, well, it is a part of recovery. It's a part of change, the change cycle in general. A couple things that have helped me dealing with change, and specifically dealing with relapse and change, one of which I still struggle with, is not being so hard on myself when I do have a relapse. And sometimes that means that I need to reach out to somebody else who can help remind me of that. My sponsor is actually really good at that. I'll call her and I'll be beating myself up about something that I failed on. She'll go, "Oh, you mean you're not perfect?" Because we're humans and we can't be perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But here's the other thing that really helped me. It was a video that I watched. The lady was specifically talking about mindful eating, but I think it goes towards any kind of relapse that you have. She talked about that the relapse is actually where you learn the most about how to succeed. When I relapse, I don't even really want to acknowledge that it happened, because I will normally shame myself about doing what I did, versus the way that she explains it, which is instead of doing that, you should look at it an open, curious state of mind. She says, look at it almost like as a science experiment. XYZ happened and XYZ was the result. That is really where you'll learn about what your triggers are, what emotions what ones do you struggle with the most to manage or are most uncomfortable with experiencing. Just being really present and observant of what's going on during that time, and then being observant and reflecting upon that after the fact as well. Not in a way to beat yourself up about it, but is in a scientific explorer type of way. You can't change what you don't know. So unless I'm willing to look at those relapses, then I won't ever be able to change them, and I won't ever be able to work past them, and they'll continue to trigger me. That whole insanity thing where the same behaviors are going to repeat, yet I'm going to expect some kind of different result out of it. I think that's why a lot of people quit when they're making changes, is they can't be perfect at it. Thank you for watching this episode of Get Inspired with Real Talk, brought to you by GetInspiredSWFL, Southwest Florida. Be sure to check out the website, getinspiredSWFL.com. You'll see any online resources we have, any upcoming events. There's a link where you can sign up to be a speaker if you feel like you have an inspirational story to tell. We're always looking for speakers for our live events, as well as this podcast. And be sure to subscribe to this channel, as we will have additional episodes coming up.